This is not over, and we can win. This is not over, and we can win. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Newsmax, where we have not called this election because we do not know who won this election. There's pending litigation. There are potential recounts, and we're not going to pretend that those issues have been resolved. In addition to the very credible allegations, potentially, of voter fraud. This is real, and we're not going to just move along because, oh, let's face it, everybody's a little sick of politics. Oh, let's face it, we just want to kind of take it easy over Thanksgiving. No, these issues are way, way, way too important. And yes, even though most of the news ignoring these problems, but in Pennsylvania, where they changed the rules essentially at the last minute, we know about that big technological glitch in Michigan. We got it so close in Wisconsin. There may be a recount. There are all kinds of problems all over the place. And if it were the other way around, believe me, the media would be examining all of these issues. I was glad to see Kayleigh McEnany once again on the national stage, talking about the president's efforts to fight this.
Our position is clear. We want to protect the franchise of the American people. We want an honest, accurate, lawful count. We want maximum sunlight. We want maximum transparency. We want every legal vote to be counted, and we want every illegal vote to be discarded. Unlike our opponents, we have nothing to hide.
And the media should want all of those things. But given the corrupt political media culture that we're in, they don't want any of that. And they were so eager to call this thing for Joe Biden and engage in fake news every step of the way while they did it.
Biden is president-elect of the United States. Biden is being called with the Pennsylvania votes that have just come in. Biden has been elected, Mika, and tell us about him.
Tell us about Joe Biden. We never heard about him. He was a little shaky there, wasn't he? Number one, president-elect. There is essentially no such thing. It is a media fabrication. The term does not exist until the electors, the Electoral College gathers, and then the state assemblies get together. They send those electors, I think the Constitution says, by stagecoach to Washington, D.C. No, there is truly an Electoral College. They meet, they vote, and then you have a president-elect. That is not the case. We don't have one yet, and they're throwing that term around very, very loosely. By the way, that came down at about 11:30 on Saturday morning. I poked my head out the window, and there were people honking horns. There were people high-fiving. I live in a pretty Democrat neighborhood, but there was no rioting. Remember? We were ready for that, weren't we? And a lot of storekeepers throughout the country spent thousands of dollars putting plywood on their windows, getting ready for the riots. Riots would have happened had the president been declared the victor. We all know that. We've all seen that. And unfortunately, I think ultimately this thing's going to be turned around, and we could sadly see violence. You know, we were warned about this. We were warned about playing with the elections many years ago and just a couple of months ago. It's always been out there, but I thought this was extremely important from our Attorney General, Bill Barr.
Well, this is playing with fire. This is playing with fire. We're a very closely divided country here. And if people have to have confidence in the results of the election and the legitimacy of the government, and people trying to change the rules to this methodology, which, as a matter of logic, is very open to fraud and coercion, is reckless and dangerous, and the people are playing with fire.
Yep, and as a matter of logic, he is right, and this is bipartisan. At least it used to be bipartisan. Jimmy Carter. Media try to downplay these conclusions, but they were very, very important, very, very logical. Put it up. He ran a national commission many years ago, 2005. Voter mail-in votes raises serious concerns about privacy as citizens voting at home may come under pressure to vote for certain candidates, and it increases the risk of fraud. Pretty black and white, isn't it? You know, they looked at voter irregularities in 2016 for 3 years. Russia turned out to be nothing. 3 years. The media, they don't want to take 3 days looking into this situation. Isn't that interesting? George Stephanopoulos was interviewing the South Dakota governor, Kristi Noem, who's a superstar, by the way, and this happened.
We are a government that gets its power from the consent of the governed. That is the people. They give their consent on Election Day. Election Day needs to be fair, honest, and transparent. And we need to be sure that we had an honest election before we decide who gets to be in the White House the next 4 years.
Governor Noem, do you have any evidence that it wasn't an honest election? You have done a tweet earlier this week saying it was rigged. Do you have any evidence at all of widespread fraud? I've spoken with Republican secretaries of state in Georgia, in Arizona. I've spoken to Republican officials across the country. They have come up with zero evidence of widespread fraud.
And that is not true. That is absolutely not true. People have signed legal documents, affidavits stating that they saw illegal activities. And that is why we need to have this conversation in court. The New York Times itself said that there were clerical errors. If you look at what happened in Michigan,
fraud, Governor, that's
that
very
we had
different.
computer glitches that changed Republican votes to Democrat votes. You look in Pennsylvania, dead people voted in Pennsylvania. So, George, I don't know how widespread it is. I don't know if it'll change the outcome of the election. But why is everybody so scared just to have a fair election and find out? We gave Al Gore 37 days to run the process before we decided who was going to be president. Why would we not afford the 70.6 million Americans that voted for President Trump the same consideration?
Some great points there, right, Governor? Very good, very good. And George, well, he made a few phone calls, and there's no problem here. Just made a few phone calls, and he wants to call it an election. And by the way, widespread fraud, it doesn't have to be that widespread. We're talking about less than 100,000 votes. Either way, could have made the difference, All right, I did find a little bit of evidence of fraud. Granted, it's circumstantial, and it's not admissible in court. However, when it happened, boy, did it hit me. Rahm Emanuel, he is one Washington snake, believe me. He was on that same show back before the shutdown, before we shut everything down related to COVID. Take a look at this, and then I want to show you a different perspective. Here he is speaking about the political impact COVID and a shutdown will have on Donald Trump.
He is not going to be able to have his rallies. And it is going to psychologically, the office is isolating enough, and his inability to get the admiration, the adulation from that crowd is going to psychologically torment him. And his isolation is going to get more intense, and his tweets are going to get more vicious.
Okay, he's willing to shut down the entire country. He wants that so it will prevent Donald Trump from campaigning, and it's going to put him in a psychological box. Now, take a look at this and take it full. Look at his face in slow motion. He is so happy, and I think he's thinking, mail-in voting, shut down the country. Yes, yes, yes. This is a way we can finally beat Donald Trump. Huh? Now, let's face it, Democrats and the media, they have been wrong about Donald Trump since day one. Just before he became a candidate, they tried to tell us he wasn't a billionaire. Then they said he could never be the nominee. Then he could never beat Hillary Clinton. Let's see. He colluded to get elected. Hunter Biden is, there's no truth there whatsoever. Move on, move on, move on. Oh, and also that he would be beaten by Joe Biden by, 17 points at one point? So they've been wrong about everything, and every time they look at him, they're reminded. I'm talking about the media here. And let's face it, Donald Trump calls him out. He has not made many friends in that realm. And here's another reason why they want him gone. It's actually personal. It's not business. It's personal with these people.
Immigrants on the whole
Come on, try getting it out. Try getting it out.
I'll get it out.
I mean, I don't know if you're going to put this on television, but you don't even know what you're talking about. Try getting it out. Go ahead. You're a third-rate reporter, and what you just said is a disgrace, okay?
Well, he was on, okay, it's my understanding he was on before. My apologies. He was on after my appearance, not before my appearance.
Here's what he said.
When you get called out like that, it can make you resent somebody for the rest of your life. I think that has a major, major impact. and how President Trump has been covered and how this election has been covered and what's happening right now. Personal, not business. And speaking of the personal, I got a little taste of what could happen if Joe Biden manages to get to the White House. Now, AOC and some on the far left have been talking about truth and reconciliation commissions, where they haul you in and they talk to you about your past and what you've done, who you've supported politically, and you have to account for that now because there's a new regime. At first, I dismissed it as far-left nonsense, but I want to show you this from Joe Lockhart. Joe Lockhart, press secretary to Bill Clinton in the 90s. This is what he writes on Twitter. This is not meant to be mean or vindictive, but the people around Donald Trump who have enabled him to bring our democracy to the brink, give me a break, have to be held responsible for what they've done. They can't be rewarded for what they've done. Now, that's pretty ominous, but it's also kind of petty at the same time. The way the swamp works, Lockhart, like a lot of these former operatives, he's in the PR business, and he doesn't want Trump alumni taking over his business. It's always about money. It's always about money. That's kind of sad, isn't it? All right, so what do we do in the meantime? You know, we got to let the lawyers do their thing. That can take time, and we all want to see progress. I have some suggestions. Number one, don't show any fear. Hold your head up. And yeah, let's face it, some of us have been afraid. And some of us are in social situations where we don't say we're a Trump supporter. And sometimes the phone rings and we tell the pollster we're voting for the other guy. We shouldn't do that. And by the way, that works to their advantage. These suppression polls, sometimes Trump supporters actually help feed that narrative that Trump does not have the support that we know he actually has. What else? If you want, you may want to go to that great big MAGA event. Have you heard about this? November 14th, it's a Saturday, I believe it's on the Mall in Washington. The details are still being arranged, but they're calling it the Million MAGA March. And you can stand up and fight against the fraudulent election and make your voices count. It's all over the place on social media. Also, I don't like hearing people say, well, they're tired and they just want to move on. If you are a Trump supporter right now, you can't be tired. You can't just want to go back to Netflix or Dancing with the Stars or whatever. Did he get tired? Look at this man. He's what, 74 years old? Look at how he campaigned. I think those are the events from the last day and a half of the campaign. 9, something like that. Actually, we couldn't fit them all on the screen. I think it was 12. He went at an incredible pace. Joe Biden didn't. And I do think that that's because he knew they had something in the bag. He knew all along. All right, where do we stand right now? I'm going to make a baseball analogy. I used to be a big baseball fan, not as much anymore, but I do remember this game, the Pine Tar incident. You're about to see George Brett from the Kansas City Royals hit a home run. I believe it's the top of the 9th inning, and they're about to take the lead with this home run. George Brett.
That's gone. And now the Royals have the 1-run lead.
Okay, the crowd isn't into it because it's a home game. Now watch what happens here. Take it full.
George Brett has just homered, and Billy Martin and the Yankees want the bat.
Okay, they want the bat. They want to take a closer look at the bat because it looks like George Brett may have tarred it all up and put some cork inside the bat and done some illegal stuff to the bat. So right now it looks like George Brett is winning, but upon closer inspection, George Brett is a lot like Joe Biden right now. And look what's about to happen to George Brett. And I think maybe in a month or so, Joe Biden.
They might be going to call George Brett out.
Well, the Yankees win. He's out.
Yes, sir.
Brett is out. Look at this. Brett is out. And
he's steaming mad.
He is out and having to be forcibly restrained from hitting plate umpire Tim McClellan. And the Yankees have won the ball game 4-3. Brett is called out for using an illegal bat or with the illegal substance on the bat.
I think this could all happen again, all right? Get what I'm talking about? George Brett is Joe Biden. I think they were up to no good. It's going to take a little while, and the reaction from the Democrats may be very similar to what Mr. Brett did back then. I hope not. I really don't want to see any violence, but this is not over.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.